Hi everyone, and welcome to lesson 10, factoring by completing the square. So today is the last lesson of learning about how to factor. This is the last type of factoring method we're going to learn. So you should be excited about that. So today our focus question is, what type of situations would we have to factor quadratics by completing the square? So and that is also our learning goal for today. We would be able to factor by completing the square. In order to support our learning for today, we're just going to do this a little warm up to get kind of like what we're going to need to think about into our brains about factoring. So we're just going to do a review of product and sum method. So on the left-hand column, I have a few trinomials, few quadratic trinomials, and we're going to factor these using the product and sum. So if you remember, when we're doing product and sum, you want to find factors that first multiply to your C and value and also add to your B value. So our C here is 36 and our B is 12. So what factors multiply to 36? So we have 1 times 36. 4 and 9, 6 and 6, 18 and 2, right? And am I missing anything? I don't think so. Okay. Oh, and 12 and 3. Okay, so which of these adds to 6? So if I'm looking, the only option I have that adds to 6 are 6 and 6, right? So that means our factored form would be x plus 6 times x plus 6. So if you notice, we're multiplying the same thing by itself. So another way we can write this is x plus 6 to the second power. Okay, so let's take a look at our next one. Here, we need numbers that multiply to our C value, which is 25, and add to our B, which here, just make sure you look at the signs, is negative 10. All right, so what multiplies to 25? We have 1 and 25 and 5 and 5. Now, it needs to add to negative 10. So what that tells me is that both of these numbers need to be negative. So 1 and 25 won't work. So that means it's going to have to be negative 5 and negative 5. So we know negative 5 plus negative 5 equals negative 10. And when you multiply it, it gives you 25. So that means our factor form is going to be x minus 5 times x minus 5. And since we're multiplying the same thing by itself, we can rewrite this as x minus 5 squared. Okay. Lastly, here we need factors that multiply to our C, which is 49. And you kind of see a theme going here, you should. And numbers that add to 14. So I know that 1 times 49 gives us 49, and also 7 and 7. So which of these options is going to add to 14? Obviously, the 7 and 7 gives you the 14. So that means our factored form is going to be x plus 7, and x plus 7. And since we're multiplying the same thing by itself, we can rewrite this as x plus 7 squared. Okay, so there's something special about these three quadratics, right? These are called perfect square trinomials. The reason being is because our C values here are perfect squared numbers, right? Because 6 to the second power is 36, 5 to the second power is 25, and 7 to the second power is 49, right? So if you see here, okay, the only thing that affects the number when we change this to what's called a binomial squared. Okay, binomial, remember, means two terms. So we have two terms, and the squared means you're taking this two terms and multiplying it by itself. That's where that exponent comes in. So the only thing that affects this binomial squared is the square root of your c value, would be the second term in the parentheses, and the sign here. So both are positive, so this would be a positive 6. And since this middle term's negative, it would be a -5 in between, because the -5 times -5 gives you 25, and when you add them together, it gives you -10. So those are the patterns you could be seeing here. Okay, so let's take a look at our last one. We're going to see something a little strange happening with our last one. Okay, so we need numbers that multiply to 3. And because that's our C, and they need to add to 8. So the only thing that multiplies to 3 is 1 and 3, which we know does not equal to 8. So since we cannot factor this using the product and sum, we're going to have to factor this using what's called completing the square. Now, it's called completing the square because we're going to have to change that 3 to another number so that we can factor this trinomial. Okay? So we cannot factor it with the 3 being here. We're going to have to remove this 3 and replace this with another value so that we can factor it. And that's what's called completing the square, because we want to change this to a number that's a perfect square so that we can complete the factoring process. Okay, so I'm going to leave these two questions for you to think about, and we're going to go to our example 1. Let's see how we would complete the square. Okay, so we're going to take that exact quadratic we were looking at, okay, and I have the steps listed down for you, okay, of how we're going to complete the square. It's going to make more sense as we go through it. Okay, so first step, take your b value and divide it by 2. So our b value is 8, okay, and we're going to divide that by 2. So that's going to be 4. Next, square that number. So we're going to raise that number to an exponent of 2. 4 to the second power is 16. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the first two terms. So we have x squared plus 8x. So we're going to add the number to the 8x. So we're going to add the 16. Keep the plus 3. And we're going to subtract it from the 3. Okay? The reason being is because you can't just add a number without taking it away from the other side. So that is why we're also adding it and subtracting it, okay? All right. Now, if you look here, what we're going to do is we're going to do the third step. So this was step 1, this was step 2. Step 3 is we're going to factor the perfect square trinomial. So if you look here, we have the first two terms is x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now, if we factor this, you should notice that 16 is a perfect square. Okay, so I'm just going to write as a side note over here, we have x squared plus 8x plus 16. And if we factor this, it's going to factor to x plus 4 times x plus 4. because 4 times 4 gives you 16, and 4 plus 4 gives you 8. So we're going to write this as a perfect square binomial. Since you're multiplying x plus 4 by itself, we're going to write this as x plus 4 squared. So I'm going to change this to x plus 4 squared. And I'm going to keep the 3 and minus 16 here. Okay. Oop. And then the last thing we're going to do is you're going to combine the last two terms. Okay. So our last two terms are 3 and negative 16. So we're going to leave it as x plus 4 squared, and 3 minus 16 is negative 13. And that would be our factored form. Okay, so this factored form is going to have some more uses in the next few lessons, so I'm just getting us used to actually factoring using completing the square here. We're going to learn the other applications that doing factoring this way has in terms of quadratics. Okay, so let's do one more example together. Okay, first we're going to take our b value and divide it by 2. So our b is negative 4. So we have negative 4 divided by 2, that's negative 2. Then we're going to square that number. So negative 2 to the second power is positive 4. Okay. I made a typo here. Just change this in your notes and subtract it from the negative 5. Okay, so we're going to add this 4 to the negative 4x here, and we're going to take it away from the negative 5, like we did in the other problem. Okay, so we have x squared minus 4x. Now I'm going to add that 4, our new value here. Rewrite that negative 5 that we had originally and subtract the 4 from it. Okay, next. So that was step 1, and that was step 2. Step 3, we're going to factor the perfect square trinomial. So you're going to take a look at your first 3 terms here. Okay, I'm going to write them on the side. Okay, so when you factor this, 4 is a perfect square. So we know that the square root of 4 is 2 times 2. But the middle term is negative 4. So that means it's going to be negative 2 and negative 2, because negative 2 times negative 2 equals positive 4. And when we add them, we get the negative 4, which is our middle value. So this is x minus 2 times x minus 2, which is the same thing as x minus 2 squared. So that's what our perfect square trinomial is going to be. So our turn into. So here it's going to become x minus 2 squared, because we're able to factor this now. And we're just going to do step 4 here, which is combine the last 2 terms. So negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9. So now, since we were able to replace this negative 5 with this positive 4, we were able to factor using our product and sum method. All right, and now you're going to work on the practice problems. If you have any questions or need further guidance, please email me or comment on the lesson. Thank you. Have a great day.